We're back with another weekly fishing report, and my apologies for missing last week. I was away on Moreton Island doing some fishing myself. We did get into some really nice bread and butter fish and even a nice big kingfish, which was a really nice surprise fishing for Taylor on 12-pound line and leader, little cast, 3.5-inch echo, and a dial bait junkie 1620 jig head. So it is true, elephants do eat peanuts. Now moving on to catch of the week, Dan Fitzpatrick nailed this really nice black marlin caught over on Fraser Island on the weekend. They are starting to show up there in much better numbers, and even the occasional bigger blue marlin around as well. So great time to get stuck into that if that is your thing. Now with the strong easterly change that we have had from the northerlies, it has actually enabled us to get offshore slightly. Some people have capitalized on some little weather windows we have been getting. So for now, the inshore reefs and wrecks are getting hit up the most because, like I said, the weather has not been great, but that has just been enough. So this time of year, plenty of bait around, plenty of tuna, school mackerel, trevally, and even queenfish. Fishing pressure edges, fishing bait schools, look for birds working, and hopping soft plastics through them, fast winding metal slugs, all that sort of stuff works really well this time of year for these pelagic fish. If you are into your top water fishing, like I said, this time of year is great for this sort of stuff. Fishing even north around Busted Head is a great little area, but we have plenty of zones off the coast here, and fishing our reefs and wrecks here with top water, we'll even see some occasional Spanish mackerel this time of year passing through. For those who have sent it out wide and managed to capitalize on the weather windows that we have had, we are seeing great numbers of red emperor and largemouth nannygai and even trout caught on the flat country and the fern country, finding isolated small bommies in this fern country. You do not need much structure to hold plenty of fish. You're more so just looking for healthy fern life and good amounts of bait and life on the bottom. Dropping down big flesh baits, whole squid, whole cuttlefish, whole pilchards on gang hooks or berserker fishing meathead hybrid jigs works very well. We are also seeing the warregos and the heralds fish well, especially around that bigger tide. These reefs fish a lot better. So now they may not fish as well. It's going to be a lot more fern country if we do get a weather window in the next few days. It is looking unlikely though. Now in the Burnett, the mouth of the system is producing really big grunter at the moment and plenty of smaller cod, but there has been a couple 45 to 50 centimeter cod, so keep persisting there. We're also seeing great numbers of flathead caught with these grunter around the mouth along the rock walls. Live baiting has been working best, or whole sprat has definitely been the bait getting the bites. If you are jack fishing these same areas, but focusing on pressure edges has worked well with the bigger tides we saw last week and earlier this week. So fishing little rocky outcrops, back eddies, or snags getting hit with current has been where these jack have been sitting. Now we have been seeing the bigger flooded at the mouth of the system like I just mentioned. However, if you are chasing numbers up the top of the Burnett, it's definitely the place to be at the moment, and hopping soft plastics is by far the most effective technique for these flathead. A lot around that 50 centimeter mark, so great eating size if you are keeping a few for a feed. The clan has still seen a great run of jacks. Like I said in previous weeks, we're seeing the bigger fish caught on the bigger, deeper structure and being caught on live bait. If you're soft plastic fishing the shallows, there's still the occasional bigger fish, but a lot around that 35 to 40 centimeter mark. But a lot of those 50 centimeter fish are being caught in deeper water, deeper banks, big laydowns, rock bars, deep holes during run out tide on liveys. The mouth of the system on those shallow flats has seen good numbers of bread and butter fish, that being whiting, brim, flathead, and even grunter on that incoming tide in that shallow stuff. Live yabbies have been by far the best bait. If you are into soft plastic fishing though, small bloodworm coloured wrigglers like a little squidgy wriggler or a dial bait junkie 3.5-inch wave minnow in very natural colours has worked well. Even fishing the flats around Booyam Bridge during that incoming tide has picked up a lot of these bread and butter species. Around Booyam Bridge, great numbers of tarpon, especially on that incoming tide. Soft plastic fishing for these guys is great fun. And while the baffle fished very, very well over the weekend with those bigger tides, the jack fishing was red hot, and fishing pressure edges, similar to the Burnett, was key. So focusing on structure getting hit with current. So that could be literally any bit of structure. Could be snags, laydowns, mangroves, rock bars. Anything getting hit with current is a great place for these jack to ambush bait. They absolutely love it. Now fishing big laydowns and big rock bars with live bait saw really nice jack caught. If you are lure fishing, covering ground, just skipping soft plastics or hopping prawn, soft plastics over mangrove roots, through snags, over the top of rock bars, covering ground worked very well for these jack. At the mouth of the system, we're seeing good numbers of trevally and even the occasional big queenfish around as well. The incoming tide has been when they seem to be more prevalent, and fishing that incoming tide, but towards the top of the tide is when we've really seen a lot on the move. Now around the mouth of the system, if you're not too familiar with the baffle, there's a lot of sandbars and a lot of snags sitting on these sandbars and these flats. They are hot spots. Definitely hit them up, especially around that top of the tide, because they're not always in the water. A lot of these snags are out of the water towards the bottom of the tide. So at the top of the tide, they hold a lot of bait, and usually you'll get great numbers of trevally and queenfish around them, also flathead and grunter around as well. So floating out whole sprat has worked well. Even live yabbies on the top of these flats for whiting and grunter at the moment during that incoming tide, and the baffle has definitely picked up a few. Now the Elliott has been very kind to those jack fishing with soft plastics at the moment. Plenty of smaller fish, but great fun nonetheless. A lot around that 30 to 35, 38 centimeter mark around in the Elliott, and the top water fishing in the Elliott has been very, very good at the moment. So skipping frog presentation soft plastics or even something like a Z-Man goats has worked very well, and just burning them back to get a reaction bite. For those bait fishing in the Elliott, look for the deeper banks and deeper holes, especially during that run out tide. There has been a lot of grunter and flathead retreat into those deeper holes at the moment. These flathead have been scarce for the lure fishers, but the bait fishers in the Elliott seem to be getting some really nice sized flathead around that 60 centimeter mark in these deeper holes. Whole sprat has definitely been the best bait to be using, but even a live mullet have got some of these big flathead to bite. Plenty of grunter and cod bycatch in these deeper areas as well. And on the flats has seen some great numbers of trevally and queenfish, similar to the baffle, coming in that incoming tide, floating out baits with minimal to no weight has been working really well. And even hopping soft plastics very erratically through the water column along these pressure edges has worked well for these pelagic fish. Now over at Lake Mondrian, there's been plenty of barra around, plenty caught, especially with that full moon. The dam was packed. It was busy, but plenty of fish were caught. It's a good reason to why it was so packed with boats. Fishing the north arm and the south arm of B has been very rewarding for those that have their own little spots. This is easier said than done, because finding a secret spot in the south arm and the north arm of B is very, very difficult. They're a well-fished area of the dam, but there's plenty of fish in there at the moment. So a couple of our regular customers that have their own little spots worked out in the south arm in particular have been slaying them at the moment. They have been catching plenty and plenty of barra on really hard bodies, slow rolled soft plastics, and even vibes. They're just looking at where the fish are in the water column on any given day, but they're fishing hard and they're actually utilizing, these guys have Humminbird. They're using the Humminbird Lake Master card. If you've got a Garmin, using the Garmin Navionics cards to get very detailed contours and colored shading of the depth contours in the lake. Helps you find little points that are underneath the water, really find pretty much highways for these barra where they come out of the deep up onto the shallow to feed and can retreat easily back onto the deep, which works very well when these fish aren't firing, especially with this easterly change at the moment. These barra, they like to be able to get back into this deeper water quite quickly. You'll see them come from the channel up onto the flat and back down. So these chart cards help find these little points in areas that you cannot visibly see. Now, as for the basin, there's still great numbers of fish in there, especially with that moon on the weekend, with that full moon I'm talking about. However, now it's definitely tapered off. It is going to be slightly tougher in there, but it is still well worth a shot. There's still good numbers in there, nothing like it was about a month ago, but still plenty of fish caught. It is a good idea to have a couple of different lures out the back that swim at different depths to find exactly what depth these fish are wanting to eat at, as well as different colors, different actions of the lure to find out what they're going to chew on. So well worth trying a couple of different options, and also range your speed between 3 kilometers an hour and 5 kilometers an hour. That is really the sweet spot that we have found. If you're not getting a bite, maybe go a bit faster, a bit slower, try a different lure, get a different action out there, maybe a noisy hard body to get a reaction bite. Just mix things up. There's definitely great numbers of fish still in that basin, and a lot still around that meter mark, with a couple of smaller ones about that 85 centimeter mark have entered in there as well. That's it for another weekly fishing report. I do hope that you guys enjoyed it, and we will see you next week with another one.